Yesterday we compared Nick's 2024 New York Pro version to Derek's most recent version from the 2025 Arnold Classic. Go back and watch that video of course, but I think we all know Nick is going to have a tough time against any version of Derek if Nick is using his 2024 version. But today we're going to use one of his best versions from his first Arnold Classic, which he won. So we'll be comparing Arnold Classic champions today actually. The champ from 2021 and the champ from 2025. Who comes out on top? Remember, if you guys like these types of videos, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. In our first pose, we have a massive change from the first video. There was no way Nick could beat Derek in this shot using his 2024 New York Pro version. That rounded stomach ruined everything else he had going on for him. But with this younger version, you don't have a gut issue. Here, I could actually see it going either way. I think this proves that I'm not just a Nick Walker hater. I hate when he has a stomach, but that's not an issue here. And he has so many other things to offer. The legs are not one of them though, besides the third leg. He does lose here to Derek. At this point in time, Nick's legs just needed even more size than they do now, and they didn't have the deepest cuts either. Derek does have the superior size and depth to the cuts, but I struggle to give Derek anything else after that. I suppose the lats can go to Derek, but Nick's are more than fine. Moving on, the arms are certainly no issue for Nick Walker. It's like his are carved out of stone while Derek's look like tubes of sausage. Besides the arms, the best thing about Nick is actually the midsection. Who would have thought? In fact, this is probably a hot take, but I prefer Nick's midsection to Derek's. To me, in open at least, a great set of abs pretty much always beats a good vacuum. Abs are muscles, they're meant to be trained and developed. A vacuum looks good, it's aesthetically pleasing, but if I could see an actual developed six-pack, why wouldn't I go with that? I honestly may prefer Nick's whole torso compared to Derek's. I get it, Derek has awesome shape, objectively better shape, yes, that's cool and all. But Nick's taper here is good, not even just decent, this is an actual V taper, not an H, a true V. And overall, Nick has much better upper body hardness and he's bringing much more thickness overall, while his shape isn't that bad. So I'm going to do it. I can hold back no longer. I'm giving this pose to Nick Walker, but it is a narrow win. Again, I can see it going either way, and I do think I'm making a slightly biased choice here to be honest. So I will reflect this in my scorecard, but what a shift. I had Derek winning this in the last video. I almost made it 2 points for him actually, but Nick has really converted me here. But in the next pose, we have another change, and it's for the worse for Nick. At least that 2024 version had lats to speak of. They were probably better than Derek's, actually, since he can't really open up and show his in the front lat spread. But here in 2021, we get pretty much zero lats from Nick and the regular problems. An absolutely pitiful chest, he loses the legs again, and the midsection is ginormous. He looks like he asked for his abs the long way.
The long way.
Derek has to take this with a full 3 points here. There is absolutely no silver lining for Nick. To call back to yesterday's video again, I had the side chest about 50-50, but 2021 Nick is actually missing some of the oomph in the pecs, and that does become the deciding factor. I don't think his side leg is as good as it is now back from 2021, but it was obviously still great back then. He's not as big here, but he's still in impeccable condition. I still think he could win. I have him winning personally, but it's closer than yesterday. Then up top, I actually prefer Derek in the arm and delt, though this probably has a lot to do with the presentation. But I always prefer longer inserting biceps and triceps for this pose. It just makes the entire arm look thicker for this shot. And finally in the pecs, Nick was just a little too thin in 2021, too flat. If you look at him now, he's really filled them in. I don't know if you guys will understand what I'm trying to say here, but they just look a little more empty in 2021, which makes sense. He's only getting more and more muscular and dense. Derek, on the other hand, now has a very full chest that's not flat at all, and he's worked on the details too. And from the overall perspective, they both stack up pretty well in terms of muscularity. Overall condition I would give to Nick, but this is a smaller Nick, so I think they're pretty much tied in terms of how muscular they look. I think Nick's overall muscularity was actually what pushed him over the edge in the last video, but it's close now as I said, and his chest isn't as good. He was already walking a tightrope in this shot, but he does fall to Derek this time around. So that 1 point Nick got yesterday is going to Derek today. Now this will, without a doubt, be the spiciest take of the comparison. I am giving this pose to Derek. However, he will only be getting 1 point. Now, I did switch what photo I was using for Derek. He's been using screenshots from the Gilco Productions video, but I wanted to use this photo from the NBC News Online website for this particular pose because it was showing the detail more, even though it's a little dark. But anyway, Nick's back was actually getting better up until 2024, where he actually regressed in this shot. fight. Used to, I would say he's the only one that could even challenge Derek in this pose. I can't say that so assuredly now. But here, this is an actual battle. If you told me you have Nick over Derek, I would completely understand. The lats and lower back go to Nick for starters. He has the better lat insertions, and overall his back is actually more balanced than Derek's because of that. Nick has these really thick lats and a great upper back, but Derek is so upper back dominant. It looks a little weird. It is overdeveloped. I think this is a pose where overdevelopment is okay, but props to Nick for more even development. Not only does he have the thicker lats, but in that same area, he has the more jagged lower back Christmas tree. But as I said, Derek wins the upper back. The development is just wild. The width is crazy too. To be that wide at like 5'4" must feel so weird. Imagine the back shots.
Oh, hell no, man. What the
But it's worth noting that while Derek wins the upper back because of that sheer amount of muscle, Nick actually looks to be drier. Nick is in gnarly condition here. Then to finish up on the upper half of the pose, I think we all could with this amount of real estate going on here, I have the delts going to Derek, but the arms going to Nick. Then for the lower half, it's close. I had 2024 Nick winning because his glutes and hams were even better than they are here, but now I have Derek ever so slightly. His glutes are fantastic as always, and his lower body condition is 11 out of 10. It's always so much better than his upper half. But all in all, I don't think Derek is leaving Nick in the dust here. Against this version of Nick, Derek really has to work for even a smaller win here. The rear double used to be better back in the day for Nick compared to his recent version, but it's flipped for the rear lat spread. He only recently solved this shot, and it's mainly because of his posing. The 2024 New York Pro was the only time I've seen him hit it properly. Back in the day, as you see here, he's making himself look narrower than he is, and also less thick at the same time. It's probably not only posing either. He is missing a little thickness that he would later gain. As you can see, the back kind of caves in around the mid-back. Derek has that thickness Nick Walker wants in this shot. The back is very full and has that rounded turtle shell look. Derek is also just as wide as Nick here. Nick is not really helped by the lower body either, since Derek is at least right on his heels, if not winning again. So this will be more of what Derek's used to in the back shots, a solid beating, closer to thorough domination. 2 points. The side tricep is another pose where I prefer Nick now. His torso in this pose is even better nowadays, and that's still what wins him the pose though. This shot really isn't a referendum on Nick, it's on Derek. First off, I have Derek winning the side leg now. He's the same as in the side chest, but Nick's execution has the side leg flattening out a bit, so Derek takes it now. But I suppose I could still have Nick winning. It's pretty nasty looking in a good way. Now up top, Derek has improved his overall thickness, and with the posing tweaks, he looks very wide in tandem with that new thickness. But he's round and full the same way a waterbed is. I have the same problem with this pose every single time. The torso, pecs and abs are watery, smooth, and washed out. Now Nick doesn't have the thickness in the pecs that he does now, but he also doesn't have the pecs of an old woman, and his abs are much more deeply separated. Nick also takes a win in the arm. Once again, Derek is solid, but Nick's horseshoe is quite good. It's not just his biceps that put him on the list of the best arms right now. Derek has improved this area, but I'd still like to see it just a touch more separated. The whole arm needs to be a bit harder. All in all though, I think Derek's pose is very solid outside of him being blurry in the middle. Really, if you take that out, it would be an extremely strong pose for him. He's wide, thick, complete. If he just had better separation, he could really push everyone. But as is, he just doesn't have it. I do prefer Nick now, but I still think the margin is roughly the same. Nick won this pose with 2 points last time. I was a little hesitant to do that again, but after I employed the help of two friends, they said 2 points would be more apt. So once again, Nick will take the side tricep with a 2-point win. The abs and thighs was one of the biggest surprises of the comparison yesterday, and today it's still a surprise. Against a younger, trimmer Nick Walker, Derek is just abysmal looking. Really though, I was always defending Nick's abs and thighs until very recently. It used to be a fantastic pose for him. Once he was in the pose, the waist wasn't an issue, and he has a killer shot once you get that out of the way. Derek doesn't even have a midsection. Again, it's just abysmal. That's disqualifying to be honest. So what, he has a better taper. Nick is bringing a phenomenal set of abs while Derek literally has nothing. In terms of the legs, Derek wins, but Nick's are fine. Here they don't look so out of place, and the level of mass and cuts are more than enough for this particular shot. At least he showed up for his weaker part of the pose. Derek couldn't even bring half of the namesake of this shot. So even though Derek does win the legs, because he brings literally nothing up top, I don't see an argument to make this anything but 3 points for Nick Walker. Nick ends the first round of judging the same way he did in the last vid. Besides the legs, Derek looks like silly putty. Again, he does win those quads, but Nick's look the best here compared to any of his other poses. So that win is a drop in the bucket for Derek. There's another little trickle in that same bucket because he does look very thick overall, but the quality is not there. With much better separation, hardness, and just straight up more development, Nick clears in the arms, delts, and abs. He shouldn't be winning the chest, but he takes that too. It's actually crazy how little detail Derek has here. but at the same time, he has like 11 out of 10 detail in others. Derek at least meets the prerequisite of being thick, and he tacks the legs on there as well, but I could still see this as another 3-point win for Nick. We'll just do 2 out of pity. Next, we have the second round of the comparison, the overall physique categories. There are 4 categories I look at, and let's go ahead and start with condition. This will remain the same from the last video, so it's an easy start. But Derek is extremely shredded in some areas, more shredded than Nick, but there isn't a single area where Nick falters. He has great uniform condition throughout the physique. Derek has areas where he looks like he's in the off season, so Nick gets a small win. Then we have muscularity. I decided to move this category to a tie. It's not quite a Derek win, but Nick in 2021 is obviously not as large as he is nowadays. Him being smaller will help him in the last 2 categories, but not here. The quads are smaller, so is the chest. Those are just the noticeable things that stick out to me, but overall he's a little less muscular. But overall I feel like him and Derek are still roughly on the same level in terms of muscularity and completeness, hence the tie. And finally, I am once again grouping the remaining 2 categories together, those being the flaws and shape categories. I do this in some comparisons, pretty much everyone that Nick is involved in, because the flaws and shape categories are one and the same for a physique like his. Last time I stuck Nick with a 5-point deficit between both categories. In terms of just shape this time around, I really don't think Nick's is that bad. You cannot have Derek Lunsford shape on every physique all the time, and we shouldn't want that. This is open bodybuilding. We certainly do not want bubble guts, but not being the most aesthetic is fine if you're pushing the envelope in other areas. So while I don't hold everyone to the standard of Derek Lunsford's awesome shape, unfortunately for Nick, his opponent is Derek Lunsford. But go back and look at Nick's shots. The front double is the main one. That's a mass monster with decent shape. Derek does win here, but I have to hold him back just a bit. So it's not 3 points, but let me discuss the flaws category, then give you the total loss here for Nick. It is kind of sad that we go into these comparisons expecting losses out of Nick in both categories, but to be fair, they always are losses, but I digress. Anyway, for flaws, while Nick didn't have the gut, there was still a stomach issue. I always watch as much video footage as I can to make these comparisons, and what I noticed when I was watching Nick was the posing. It's not bad, quite the opposite, but getting into the poses is another thing. He would relax his obliques between shots, and you can see this in photos too. So not only was he doing this long enough to be picked up on the videos, but the still shots as well. Not only that, but the waist is kind of big, to be honest. It wasn't so bad in certain shots, but again, relaxed, we can really see how big it is. It actually started out fairly big, and it got better as he went on. He was actually really trim at the 2023 Arnold, but then he completely reverted back in 2024. So he has pretty good control of it here, but it was still an issue in 2021. It will probably always be an issue to some degree, but it wasn't as distracting here. All in all, he will lose both categories, but I think 3 points is fair. Last time he almost lost 6 points, which is the max he could give to Derek between the 2 categories. Now I think it's just a 3-point deficit in the final categories. It's time to reveal the final scores now and end with some concluding thoughts. But before I do, let's do a little review. This is the last spoiler alert from yesterday's video. And I don't want to talk about this comparison a whole lot, but that idea is the whole reason I did this follow-up video, to compare how different versions of Nick would fare against this new and improved Derek. Anyway, last video I had Nick winning, at least on paper. But you and I both know that you'd have to be a die-hard Nick Talker loyalist to give him the win with that New York Pro version. Derek was damn good at the Arnold this year, and Nick is not beating him in his current state. So I rectified that in my concluding thoughts section by saying, yeah, Nick is good on paper, but that gut undoes everything he does right and then some. But in this comparison, there wasn't a major stomach issue on Nick, at least not as big as the 2024 version. So I think we all walked away feeling better about Nick in this matchup. What's interesting though is that he actually did worse on paper here. He barely won last time on the score sheet, but here he's getting beat. Derek won today's comparison with 56 points to Nick Walker's 44. So clearly I have some explaining to do. For this matchup, I don't feel the need to add a caveat like last time. I agree. Derek does come out ahead. Not by a huge margin, but I think he's a more objective winner. There isn't some weirdness where the scores in reality drastically differ like last video. Although for me personally, if I was on a panel and I didn't have to be objective and just provide my vote, I'd low-key vote for Nick Walker in many scenarios. Now, 2024 Nick did so well on paper because he was maxed out. That's what won him more poses but lost him the overall matchup. You can imagine a judge looking down on the score sheet and his notes, citing that Nick wins more poses, but then when he looks up and is presented with a bowling champion instead of a bodybuilding one, Nick wouldn't get the win. Being maxed out on mass and condition does wonders for your mandatories, but if it affects your shape too much, you're cooked. Derek is great in all three main criteria, mass, condition, and shape, so he was an obvious choice over current Nick Walker. But here it's slightly different. Personally, with Nick's shape a bit better in 2021 and the mass condition not receding too much, I have him as a bit of a personal winner. I'm a bit more lenient on that combination that Nick brings than modern judges, lose because I think everything is worth an equal amount. But that's why Derek is the more objective winner. I think they're close regardless. Muscularity is equal, condition goes to Nick ever so slightly, but Derek definitely wins shape. That probably equals a higher average for Derek than Nick on its own. But in today's era, you have to have shape. I don't think these three categories are equal in the eyes of the judges. It's probably a 40-30-30 split, with shape being a bigger factor to them nowadays. So in both scenarios, whether you're weighting shape more or not, Derek is probably coming out ahead. The only thing that really changes is the margin. Nick is still very min-maxed. The shape still left some to be desired even in 2021, but the condition and muscularity aspects are great. But Derek prioritizes everything. He has the stronger overall combo, the higher average between these elements, and the stronger overall physique, which means he wins today's comparison and is the stronger overall Arnold Classic champion. Well, that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know what you guys thought of this matchup and how it compared to yesterday's video down in the comments below. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more. If you are in need of some high quality supplements and want to support the channel even further, then be sure to head over to Arms Race Nutrition. Then at checkout, use my code PROJECT10 to get 10% off your entire order. That's code PROJECT10 on armsracenutrition.com. And finally, with all that said, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.
Get in like, see ya.